Sangye chudang soki chobnam la jang chu bardu dagni kapsu chi dagi chunyin gi pe sonam ki kola penche sangye drupar shu sangye chudang soki chobnam la jang chu bardu dagni kapsu chi dagi chunyin gi pe sonam ki kola penche sangye drupar shu sangye chudang soki chobnam la Chantu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi, Dagi Chunyan Gi Pe Sonam Ki, Rula Pinche Sangi Drupasho. You're still muted.
Let's do a couple of minutes meditation on the breath. So I think the purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings from suffering to enlightenment. In order to do that, I have to reach enlightenment myself. That depends upon completing the entire path to enlightenment, realizing all the steps on the path to enlightenment. Therefore, I'm going to study this profound text of Atisha's first lamrim text in order to understand how to attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So, very briefly like that, generate bodhicitta for this morning's session. So the verse we're looking at, verse 47, understanding emptiness of inherent existence through realizing that the aggregates, constituents, and sources are not produced is described as wisdom. So there's quite a long commentary by Geshe Sonom Rinchen on this verse. We got through about half, maybe just more than half of it. So this is a topic that I can't really explain. Just have to read what Geshe-la says. But I'll read it a little slowly, so if you can, think of the meaning of the words, almost like a meditation. So when we left off, we were talking about the magician who conjures up images of horses and elephants on the basis of sticks and stones. So it goes on. In the magical illusion, the horses and elephants appear through a combination of the pebbles and twigs treated with a magic substance over which a spell has been cast, and the awareness which has been affected by the spell. If the illusion of horses and elephants were the result only of altered perception, it could appear anywhere, but it appears only where the pebbles and twigs are, to which the magic substance has been applied and over which a spell has been cast. If the illusion were a result only of the magic substance and spell put on the pebbles and twigs, then everyone, even those whose awareness has not been affected, should see horses and elephants. But latecomers to the show do not. Similarly, Svatantrika Madhyamikas say that things do not exist only through being posited by non-defective awareness, but also from the side of the object. The production of a sprout from a seed is posited through the force of appearing to non-defective awareness, but also exists from the side of the seed. Since Svatantrika Madhyamikas assert that things exist through a combination of these two factors, existence exclusively from a thing's own side by way of its unique mode of being is for them the measure of true existence. Although they assert that nothing has true existence, they accept that things have inherent existence. For prasangikas, any existence from a thing's own side constitutes true existence and is precluded. So, through in the teachings on tenets, Trupta, there's four Buddhist schools of tenets: Sautrantika, Vaibhashika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika, which has these two divisions, Svatantrika Madhyamika and Prasangika Madhyamika. So they differ in the way they explain the object of refutation, the self. So so the grossest view of the self is that of the Vaibhashikas, Sautrantika, Shiramato Madhyamaka. And the most refined is that of the actual way things exist according to our tradition, is the most refined way is the Prasangika view. They deny any existence from a thing's own side, since that constitutes true existence. They refute true existence. In the Svatantrika definition of conventional existence, we must understand what is meant by posited through the force of appearing to non-defective awareness. Posited through the force of appearing to non-defective awareness. This entails examining the meaning of non-defective awareness. Does it refer to conceptual or non-conceptual awareness? From the Svatantrika Madhyamika viewpoint, a non-defective awareness is a conceptual or non-conceptual awareness not affected by immediate causes of error and valid with regard to its object, which according to them exists by way of its own characteristic nature. For instance, an awareness which mistakes a scarecrow in the distance for a human, or the perception from a traveling train that the countryside is moving past, is affected by immediate causes of error, such as the distance and the lifelike quality of the scarecrow in the first case, and the movement of the train in the second. These perceptions can be invalidated by other valid perceptions, whereas a non-defective awareness cannot. If, for instance, we move closer to the scarecrow, we ascertain that it is not a human being and thereby invalidate the perception that it is. For Svatantrikas, everything that exists is posited through the force of appearing to a non-defective awareness. Any form of existence which is not posited in this way constitutes the object of refutation. Prasangikas hold that conventional existence is mere attribution by thought, or what Lama Zopa Rinpoche calls labeling by the mind. When we understand what mere attribution by thought implies, we know what is meant by conceptions of true existence. This eventually leads us to the understanding of emptiness. Prasangikas say that everything that exists is a mere attribution by thought in the way that a snake is attributed to a rope. Imagine this scene. It's dusk and there is a mottled, coiled rope lying on the path some way ahead. You walk in that direction. To your horror, you see a snake right in front of you. You don't think that rope is a snake. You only think a snake. Remember the joke that Tenzin Wangchuk played on his teacher, Kyabji Song Rinpoche? Tenzin Wangchuk was his attendant. I think he'd been very sick as a child, and he had some kind of illness. And as a result of that, one of his eyes kind of looked away. So when he was 6 or 7, I think Song Rinpoche kind of took responsibility for him and looked after him, and then Song Rinpoche passed away in 84 or 85, and must have been 84. And then his incarnation was recognized. So his incarnation must be, in his 30s now. Tenzin Wangchuk is his attendant, has been the attendant of the incarnation all those 35 years. So that's, I think it's got to be some kind of record. You're attendant for this great Lama, he passes away, then you're the attendant of his incarnation for decades. Anyway, if you've ever seen pictures of the previous Song Rinpoche, you see he's got a very stern, he's got this little white beard. I wanted to do a Song Rinpoche beard. I wanted to shave all this off and have the Song Rinpoche beard, but Wendy said I was dreaming. So we were at Manjushri Institute one time, it was 78, I think. And Manjushri Institute's old priory, it was quite run down. And FPMT was able to buy it and the 70 acres of land for something like £70,000, which is like incredibly cheap for that huge building. And even though it needed a lot of work and that huge piece of land. So it was very drafty. Even it could get quite cold even in the summer. So so they had these door stops, these sausage-like things that you put in the gap underneath the door to stop the wind coming in. So Song Rinpoche's room had one of those. So one day, Tenzin Wangchuk opened the door and he picked this thing up, and Rinpoche was sitting on his bed meditating or doing whatever he does like that. And Tenzin Wangchuk threw it at Song Rinpoche and said, "Snake, Rinpoche, snake." So he kind of barely reacted, but just a little bit. So that was very gratifying. Nobody else in the world would ever dare, especially other of his students. But they had that kind of close relationship. But I'm sure he didn't see it as a snake. I'm sure he saw it as a doorstop. Is that what they call doorstops? Anyway, that rope is a snake. You only think a snake. It is lying very still. If that is really a snake, it has to be right there where it appears to be. You gingerly move forward to investigate and give it a prod with your umbrella. To your amazement, it doesn't move and doesn't feel in the least fleshy. In fact, it feels suspiciously like a rope. And sure enough, that's an old coiled up rope lying on the path in front of you. There's no snake anywhere in that rope, not in any of its parts, nor in the combination of those parts, nor in the former or later moments which make up its continuum. You realize that the snake was a mere figment of your imagination, a mere thought. In relation to the five aggregates, which constitute our body and mind, the thought I arises. If we are not content with the mere thought I in relation to these aggregates, but set out to locate the self, we fail to find it. It cannot be found in any of the aggregates. Not in their combination, nor in their continuum. The self, like the snake, is a mere attribution. However, there's a vital difference between the snake attributed to the rope and the self attributed to the aggregates. The one cannot in any way function as a snake, but the other can function very satisfactorily as a person. So the snake attributed to the rope can't function in any way like a snake. The self attributed to the aggregates can function very satisfactorily as a person. In just the same way, production is an attribution made to a process involving a collection of causes and conditions. So in the verse, Atisha said, realizing that the aggregates, constituent sources are not produced. Production is an attribution made to a process involving a collection of causes and conditions. If we're not satisfied with this and try to pinpoint production among those factors which serve as its basis of attribution, we will not find it in any of the individual parts of the process, not in their collection, nor in their continuum. We can therefore conclude that ultimate production is non-existent. While we cannot find the attributed phenomenon in the parts and in the part possessor that together constitute its basis of attribution, we also cannot point to anything which exists as an entity separate from them. The self cannot be found within the aggregates, neither can it be identified as an entity apart from them. It is dependent upon them. In the Precious Garland, Nagarjuna says, a person is not earth, nor water, not fire, air, or space, not consciousness, nor all of them. What person is there other than these? He demonstrates how the self or person is none of the 6 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. Neither the solid and firm elements of our body, nor the bodily fluids, nor body heat, nor our breath, nor our orifices, nor any of the 6 kinds of consciousness are the person. If the self were as truly and objectively existent as it appears to be, it should be findable. Yet it isn't findable in any of these individual parts, nor in their combination. It is a mere attribution to a basis of attribution. It is a mere attribution to a basis of attribution. The basis of attribution cannot be that which is attributed to it. And the basis of attribution cannot be that which is attributed to it. Yet it and the attribution are not entirely disparate and unconnected either. When we search for the body or for any body part, it too turns out to be a mere attribution to a collection of parts. Everything exists in this way. For humans, happiness is closely associated with the body, which depends on its constituent physical elements. In the 2nd chapter of the yogic deeds of bodhisattvas, Aryadeva says, though powerless, the combining of all the elements produces the body. Thus, it is not at all proper to call what is incompatible pleasurable. None of these elements alone can constitute the body. They do so collectively, but since they are hostile to one another, their balance, on which our well-being depends, is precarious. The internal elements are affected by the external ones. Thus we see how our own happiness and the external physical elements are interconnected. Nothing is independent or unrelated to other factors. Are we unnerved by the fact that nothing is findable upon search? Does it make us feel uneasy? Actually, it's very encouraging. If the self were findable, it would not depend upon a variety of causes and conditions, nor upon a collection of diverse factors, and would always and forever remain exactly the same. As it is, change is possible by altering the causes and conditions and the factors on which the self depends. This is good news. Tsongkhapa received teachings from Manjushri in visions in which he emphasized that emptiness and appearance should be given equal importance. A correct understanding of conventional existence enables us to comprehend the implications of true existence and leads to a correct understanding of emptiness. For this reason, the way Svatantrikas and Prasangikas define conventional existence is examined in detail. In the next two verses, Atisha follows the method of investigation with regard to the self and the six elements employed by Nagarjuna in the Precious Garland. So verse 48 reads, something existent cannot be produced, nor something non-existent, like a sky flower. These errors are both absurd, and thus both of the two will not occur either. Something existent cannot be produced, nor something non-existent, like a sky flower. These errors are both absurd, and thus both of the two will not occur either. Yeshua, production is a mere attribution. If it had objective existence, it should be findable. In this approach, four possibilities are examined in an attempt to locate production. Is an effect that exists at the time of its causes, or one that does not exist at the time of its causes, produced? Here, production is sought in the individual components, equivalent to the individual elements in Nagarjuna's presentation. Is an effect which both exists and does not exist at the same time of its causes produced? This examines the relationship between production and a combination of components comparable to the collection of the elements in Nagarjuna's presentation. Is the effect neither existent nor non-existent at the time of its causes? Finally, production is sought as something entirely separate from its components, equivalent to seeking the self as a findable entity, distinct from body and mind. This refutation is mainly directed at proponents of Chittamatran tenets, who assert that the true existence of production, duration, and disintegration, the features of which characterize all products, is self-evident. If something existed at the time of its causes, it will already be in existence, and there would be no need for it to be produced again. Why would it need causes? If it could be produced again, there would be endless repeated production. An inherently existing thing which did not exist at the time of its causes would forever remain non-existent and could, like a skyflower, never be produced, no matter how many causes and conditions were assembled for that purpose, because, being inherently existent and therefore independent, such factors could not affect it. The last line of Atisha's verse refers to the last two possibilities which are examined. Production of both what does and does not exist at the time of its causes is precluded because of the above-mentioned faults. Moreover, nothing can be both existent and non-existent because the two are mutually exclusive. Production of what is neither existent nor non-existent at the time of its causes is also not feasible because no such thing can be found. It's hard to get with one or two readings. This is why the Geshe study this stuff for what, 2 years or something? Madhyamaka. But you know, the wisdom of hearing, that's something. Then we have to contemplate on it. And then we have to meditate on it to gain the realization. The next verse, 49. A thing is not produced from itself, nor from another, also not from both, nor causelessly either. Thus it does not exist inherently by way of its own entity. Is the effect produced from something which is the same entity as it? From something which is an inherently different entity? From that which is both the same and different? Or from that which is neither? The diamond fragments reason, you know what I said the other day, there's a chapter in Meditation and Emptiness called The Diamond Slivers, the diamond fragments, which is the name given to this form of analysis. The diamond fragments reason is a four-cornered proof that there is no inherent or findable production. For instance, the subject, a seedling, is not inherently produced because of not being produced from itself, from an inherently existent other, or from both or causelessly. Each fragment of this diamond-like reasoning can cut through many different misconceptions. So those four again. A seedling is not inherently produced because it's not produced from itself, it's not produced from an inherently existent other, it's not produced from both, and it's not produced without cause. If the seedling were produced from a seed of the same entity, it would be existent, having already achieved its own entity, and therefore its production again would be meaningless. If something already existent needed to be produced again, the seed would undergo production perpetually, and there would be no opportunity for its effect to emerge. This counters the view that the effects exist in unmanifest form within its cause. This counters the view that the effect exists in unmanifest form within its cause and is manifested through production. If an inherently existent seedling were produced from an inherently existent seed, since the two would be inherently other and thus unrelated, even thick darkness could come from a tongue of flame, because anything could produce anything. Although a seedling is produced from a seed, which is a different entity, the two are not inherently different. Inherent otherness would rule out any relationship of mutual dependence. This argument counters the view that things like seeds and seedlings and processes like production have inherent existence. Some schools of thought assert that things are produced from both self and other, namely from that which is the same entity as the product, as well as from that which is a different entity. The example of a pot is used as a simple illustration. They assert that the pot is the same entity as the clay from which it's made, and a different entity from the potter who makes it. The arguments used to refute production from self apply to the former part of the contention, while those refuting production from other apply to the latter part. The refutation of causeless production counters the views of those who do not believe in past and future lives or in causation that is not apparent, and who assert that mind has a physical nature. For them, the sharpness of a thorn or softness of a petal are uncaused. The implication is that happiness and suffering are also uncaused, and therefore the practice of ethical discipline as a cause for happiness is meaningless. This is countered by the argument that the causes which produce a thorn or petal also produce its sharpness or softness. If the arising of things were not dependent upon a variety of causes and conditions, but were uncaused, the sowing of seed in order to obtain a harvest later would be pointless, because things would arise by themselves and anything could arise from anything. Examining whether a thing is produced from self or from other is equivalent to investigating whether the self is any of the individual elements in Nagarjuna's presentation. Examining whether a thing is produced from both self and other is like ascertaining whether the self is a collection or combination of the elements. Examining whether a thing is produced causelessly is like establishing whether the self is a findable entity quite independent of the elements. This verse refutes the views held by various Buddhist and non-Buddhist schools For example, all Buddhist schools other than the Prasangikas assert that an effect is produced from a cause which is inherently different from it. Verse 50. Moreover, when all phenomena are examined as to whether they are one or many, they are not seen to exist by way of their own entity, and thus are ascertained as not inherently existent. When we examine the nature or identity of phenomena, we find that they are not inherently one with, nor inherently different from their basis of attribution. In following this approach, we first establish the object of refutation, then the fact that if the thing we are investigating existed as it appears, it could only exist in one of two ways, and that there is no third possibility. We then investigate whether it is inherently one or identical with its basis of attribution, or whether it is inherently discrete from its basis of designation. If it is neither of these, it clearly does not have inherent existence, and so does not exist as it appears. We then fix our attention on the absence of that for which we were searching. So that's our meditation on emptiness. None of us wants to suffer. To end suffering, we must end cyclic existence. This depends on overcoming our misconception of the self, the root of cyclic existence, which can only be stopped by understanding selflessness. We must first understand what constitutes the impossible mode of existence, of which things are empty. This involves recognizing the object in negation, which is subtle and therefore difficult to identify. In that case, we might prefer to forget about the whole matter. But we cannot afford to do this, because if we seek the kind of liberation described by the Buddha, we have no option but to follow this path. If there is only one path and our way is blocked by a huge boulder, we either have to remove it or climb over it. We have no other option. The only way forward is to recognize what is negated and gain understanding of emptiness. We don't do this for the Buddha's sake, nor for Nagarjuna's or our spiritual teachers, but for our own sake. In many great texts, we find the example of a reflection of a face in a mirror used to illustrate how everything lacks true existence. The reflection of the face looks in every way like a real face. We can't say this part looks like a real face while that part doesn't. However, it is in every way not a real face. The reflection of the face exists as a result of various factors, such as the clean surface of the mirror, the presence of a face, and a suitable space between the two. With its help, we can tidy our hair, shave or put on makeup, attend to blemishes and so on. It functions satisfactorily, despite the fact that it isn't what it appears to be. The eye appears in every way to be truly existent from the side of the aggregates that constitute body and mind. Despite this appearance, it is in every way empty of true existence. Nevertheless, the self exists and functions satisfactorily as the creator of actions and the experiencer of their effects. Similarly, though not existent in the way they appear to exist, things appear, exist, and function. Tsongkhapa warns us not to dismiss the example of the reflection of the face in the mirror as too simple for our attention. Repeated perusal and exploration of it will lead to a sound understanding of reality. Verse 51. The reasoning of the 70 stanzas on emptiness, the treatise on the middle way, and so forth, explain that the nature of all things is established as emptiness. The intelligent who are intent on gaining certainty with regard to the nature of reality use both scriptural statements and reasoning to establish emptiness. We turn primarily to the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras for the Buddha's statements about emptiness. Nagarjuna has collected these in his Compendium of Sutra. There's a footnote here. Let's see what it says. Sorry. Extensive footnotes, actually. This one just gives the name of the text. Sutra Samuchaya. Okay. Compendium of Sutra. I don't know if it's been translated into English. His 6 collections of reasoning set out the analytical approach. Of these, the 70 stanzas on emptiness establishes the absence of true existence through the reason of dependent arising, while the treatise on the middle way does so through a multitude of approaches. Extremely valuable too are the works of Bhavaviveka, Chandrakirti, and Aryadeva. The importance of such study as a preparation for meditation should not be underestimated. In the preceding and following verses, which present the Madhyamika view, and by his reference here to Nagarjuna's works, Atisha answers Changchub Er's 6th question as to which of the two, Chittamatra or Madhyamika, is the correct view of reality. Verse 52. Since there are a great many passages, I have not cited them here, but have explained just their conclusions for the purpose of meditation. Geshe-la. Since there's a considerable body of textual material, Atisha has made only a brief presentation of the essence, which will assist us in the practice of meditation. Why did he not include a lengthier explanation? Changchub requested him to write in a way accessible to everyone. Atisha may have felt that those for whom he was writing would have been overwhelmed by more detail. This concludes the explanation of the preparation for practicing special insight into reality. Verse 53, thus, whatever is meditation on selflessness in that it does not observe an inherent nature in phenomena, is the cultivation of wisdom. In presenting the actual practice of special insight, Atisha first refers to meditation on the fundamental nature of the object and then of the subject. In his 7 points for training the mind, the great Kadampa master Geshe Chekawa follows the same order. He says, think all phenomena are like dreams. Analyze the unborn nature of awareness. First, we investigate the fundamental nature of what we perceive, recognizing that all apprehended objects are like dreams, in that they seem real, but lack true existence. Then we turn our attention to the awareness that perceives their fundamental nature, establishing that it also lacks any inherent existence. If the aggregates, constituents, and sources had any existence in and of themselves by way of their own nature, it should be found when we analyze to discover whether they're truly existent or not. However, investigation of their ultimate or final nature does not reveal even an atom of such inherent existence. The absence of existence by way of their own nature with regard to persons and what is associated with them is the selflessness of persons and other phenomena. Meditation on their selflessness is the cultivation of wisdom. When we consider the skill with which the author explains his subject matter in the lamp, in this text, our respect for him grows. This kind of respect does not depend on superficial attributes like an impressive appearance, fine robes, or the pomp and circumstance which often surrounds great people. If our respect is based on such things, we may be disappointed in the end. Verse 54. Just as wisdom does not see an inherent nature in phenomena, having analyzed wisdom itself by reasoning, non-conceptually meditate on that. Just as wisdom does not see an inherent nature in phenomena, having analyzed wisdom itself by reasoning, non-conceptually meditate on that. Keshla. When the analytical wisdom, which does not find any true existence in persons or other phenomena, is likewise scrutinized by reasoning, it too is found not to have an inherently existent nature. Here, analysis is made to see whether the awareness apprehending the emptiness of objects exists as it appears. Is it inherently one with or inherently different from its basis of attribution? First, we establish the nature of reality by hearing and reading about it. Next, we induce a sound understanding by thinking about what we have learned and through analysis by reasoning. We then fix our attention on the lack of inherent existence of the awareness which understands the emptiness of other phenomena. When our certainty regarding its emptiness declines, we induce it again through analysis. By meditating repeatedly on emptiness, free from all conceptions of true existence, we eventually gain the non-conceptual exalted wisdom that directly perceives reality. Lama Yeshe always used to emphasize that if we want to recognize the emptiness of all phenomena, we have to start by meditating on the emptiness of the self, the I. First, we have to realize the emptiness of us, of our real I, of us, the self we feel, and then we turn to the examination of other phenomena. 55. The nature of this worldly existence, which has come from conceptualization, is conceptuality. Thus, the elimination conceptuality is the highest state of nirvana. This verse presents the Four Noble Truths. The true sources of worldly existence are our contaminated actions and disturbing emotions. Those who seek liberation can and must rid themselves of these. Both the actions and the disturbing emotions which underlie them are rooted in our conceptions of true existence. Our present body and mind are cyclic existence. Those who wish for freedom must recognize that cyclic existence is the product and fabrication of our conceptuality and lacks true existence. The nature of cyclic existence is suffering, since it's governed by the disturbing emotions rooted in our misconception of reality. The contaminated body and mind and the person attributed to them, and the result of actions performed under the influence of the disturbing emotions that spring from our clinging to true existence. Sorry, wrong emphasis. Read again. The contaminated body and mind and the person attributed to them are the result of actions performed under the influence of the disturbing emotions that spring from our clinging to true existence. The disturbing emotions constantly harm us and are our only real enemy. To be dominated by an enemy is suffering. How can we escape? By cultivating the wisdom which focuses on selflessness, we can rid ourselves of all conceptions of true existence. There are many kinds of freedom, but the highest freedom is the complete elimination of all conceptions of true existence. This is nirvana. Verse 56. The great ignorance of conceptuality makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. Resting in non-conceptual stabilization, space-like non-conceptuality manifests clearly. The great ignorance of conceptuality makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. Resting in non-conceptual stabilization, space-like non-conceptuality manifests clearly. Atisha now refers to two sutra passages regarding the cultivation and regarding the cultivation of combined calm abiding and special insight focusing on reality. What prevents our escape from cyclic existence? What keeps us fettered? Our conception of true existence, the greatest and most fundamental form of ignorance, throws us into this ocean of suffering. To counteract it, we must meditate on selflessness. Having gained conviction about the nature of reality through analysis, we cultivate non-conceptual meditative stabilization on the emptiness of the mind, free from all conceptions of true existence, like a clear autumn sky, free from clouds. By familiarizing ourselves with direct perception of the mind's fundamental nature, we overcome all conceptions of duality and the two kinds of obstructions. This verse again presents the Four Noble Truths. The last line refers to the true cessation of suffering. We think of ourselves in terms of body and mind, but do we really even know our body? We can see the skin, but most of our body remains hidden from us. We can't see the mind and know even less about it, yet we sense its power. One part of the mind seems to be constructive, the other not. Just as wave upon wave arises out of the ocean and subsides back into it, our mind is constantly agitated by wave after wave of thoughts which conceal its nature. These thoughts arise from the mind and subside back into it. We must watch our mind and discover both its conventional and ultimate nature. Nature's plural. Verse 57. When bodhisattvas non-conceptually contemplate this excellent teaching, they will transcend conceptuality, so hard to overcome, and eventually reach the non-conceptual state. This verse from the text called Retention Mantra Engaging in Non-Conceptual Realization once more presents the Four Noble Truths, beginning with true paths. The excellent teaching refers to the Mahayana teaching on the nature of reality. Having heard and thought about this using analytical reasoning, the bodhisattva enters into meditative equipoise on emptiness. Gradually, all conceptions of true existence and the suffering which stems from them will be overcome, and the exalted non-conceptual understanding of reality will arise, leading to the true cessation of suffering. Verse 58. Having ascertained through scripture and through reasoning that phenomena are not produced nor inherently existent, meditate without conceptuality. So that's talking about how do we know something is true or not? Like, past and future lives. So the best way to know is through direct personal experience. If we experience, if we remember our past lives very clearly, and then if we can even see our future lives, then we have no doubt. And no matter what anyone tells us, we know from our own experience. The second way is through logical deduction or through reasoning. We can come to a conclusion whether something's true or not. And if something can't be ascertained, through we don't have the personal experience, or we can't prove it through logic, then we have to rely on what's sometimes called scriptural authority, or just by hearing it from people who do know. So overt phenomena can be understood to be true through personal experience, slightly hidden phenomena through reasoning, and very hidden phenomena we have to rely on somebody with higher insight than our own. So he says, having ascertained through scripture and through reasoning that phenomena are not produced, so those two ways, are not produced nor inherently existent, meditate without conceptuality to gain, direct personal experience of emptiness. In conclusion, we must first ascertain that phenomena are not inherently produced nor have inherent existence. We do this through the use of reasoning and scriptural statements, which, from a prasangika point of view, contain explicit explanation of emptiness and may therefore be taken literally. In Arya Shura's Life Stories of the Buddha, it says, after you have heard, make practice the essence, and with ease you will gain freedom from the fortress of birth. If we hear the teachings and diligently put what we have heard into practice, we will easily escape from imprisonment in the fortress of involuntary birth, aging, sickness, and death. Verse 59. Having thus meditated on suchness, eventually, after reaching heat and so forth, the very joyful and the others are attained, and before long, the enlightened state of Buddhahood. So heat and very joyful are in quotation marks. Geshe-la explains. By taking sincere refuge and training ourselves in the practices of the initial and intermediate levels, the paths of the lesser and intermediate capable being, as Rinpoche calls it, we first stop our preoccupation with the well-being of this life, and then with the happiness of any state within cyclic existence. With a genuine wish to free ourselves, we practice the 7 cause and effect instructions and the method of equalizing, exchanging self and others. When these techniques bring about a true transformation, the altruistic intention, bodhicitta, arises naturally. It no longer needs to be contrived. So when we generate, like we do at the beginning of these sessions, you think the purpose of my life, I must reach enlightenment, therefore I'm going to do this in order to reach enlightenment, say all sentient beings. That's what Rinpoche calls effortful, bodhicitta with effort. We have to make an effort to generate the thought. But eventually, bodhicitta will arise spontaneously. When we've brought about a true transformation by doing the 7-fold cause and effect meditation, on the basis of equanimity, all sentient beings, my mother, remembering others' kindness, repaying the kindness, love, compassion, the superior intention, and then the extraordinary intention, taking personal responsibility for the enlightenment of all sentient beings, and then bodhicitta, and then exchanging self for others, thinking of the shortcoming of self-cherishing and the benefits of cherishing others and so forth. So through those practices, we generate bodhicitta. And there's a combined method of 11 steps. I think maybe Lama Tsongkhapa, combining these 2 methods that Lama Tsongkhapa put together. Have you seen the book by Ribush Rinpoche? It's called Developing Bodhicitta, or generating bodhicitta. It's on, I think it's on the website, teachingsfromtibet.com. I think Ribush Rinpoche talks about them there. At this point, we reach the Mahayana path of accumulation. So there's a path of accumulation, the 5 paths, you know those, right? Path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of insight, path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. So these 5 paths exist in both the Hinayana and the Mahayana. So when we generate bodhicitta through these techniques, and it naturally arises without having to be contrived or effortful, we reach the Mahayana path of accumulation. Those with sharp faculties have already ascertained the correct view of reality, while those with duller faculties begin now. Without the understanding of emptiness, it's impossible to go beyond the path of accumulation. Once the aspiring and engaged kinds of altruistic attention or bodhicitta have arisen, we must reinforce skillful means with wisdom, you know, the 2 wings of the bird, method and wisdom. Calm abiding and special insight, both focusing on emptiness, are cultivated. When these are combined, we reach the heat phase of preparation. So that's the first thing Atisha referred to. Intensifying this practice, we move through the phases called peak, tolerance, and supreme qualities until the path of seeing, the direct perception of reality, occurs. So there are these 4 levels of the path of preparation. This is the first supramundane path, the path of seeing, you know, realizing emptiness. So first, and marks the attainment of the first bodhisattva stage. Which is called the very joyful. So that's what Atisha referred to also. We then progress through the other bodhisattva stages, such as the stainless, until the 10th. Until on the 10th, we finally enter the Vajra-like meditative stabilization, which acts as a direct antidote to the subtlest remaining obstructions to omniscience. You know, the very last barriers to enlightenment. These are all temporary results gained from doing this practice. The ultimate result is the attainment of the wisdom truth body, the enjoyment body, and the emanation body of a fully enlightened being who possesses the 5 kinds of exalted wisdom. What are they? It's kind of quite a long, detailed footnote. You have to do that research yourself. Through their great familiarity with the altruistic intention, enlightened beings do not remain inactive, but ripen those who are receptive and liberate those who are ripe. Ripen those who are receptive and liberate those who are ripe. Enlightened activity flows from them spontaneously, without impediment. Would it be good to attain such a state? If we think so and are really concerned for others, we must do what is necessary to attain enlightenment. So this concludes the part of the lamp that deals with the practice of sutra and acts as a preliminary to the practice of tantra. The text is succinct and not too difficult to memorize. If we have a clear idea of what each verse means, we possess the essential guide for our journey. Thanks to the kindness of my teachers, I learned the lamp by heart when I was young, but at that time I didn't understand its meaning. Later, when I understood what it meant, I'd forgotten the words. There were two ways of memorizing in Tibet. One was from a written text, and the other by repeating one verse at a time after our teacher. This enabled even those who couldn't read well to learn a text by heart. We had to repeat each verse until we were fluent. Then our teacher tested us, and if we could recite it perfectly, we were allowed to leave. Some boys had to go on repeating the same verse for a long time, but I wasn't one of those. Though I could memorize quickly, I lacked perseverance and found myself in trouble when we had to repeat the complete text at the end. I didn't regularly repeat the part I'd already learned and quickly forgot what I'd memorized at the beginning. Intelligence isn't enough. Tenacity is necessary too. When we move on to a new topic in our meditation on the stages of the path, we must always briefly remind ourselves of what we've already covered. If we persevere in this way, one day we'll find that we have the complete path to enlightenment deeply imprinted in our heart. So often when the lamas were teaching traditionally, they'd, over a series of days or weeks or whatever, they'd start the teaching by summarizing what they taught in the teaching before. And then I think they'd mention the outline that they're going to cover, and then they give the teaching, and then at the end give a brief summary of the teaching, and then the next one will be similar structure. So that's the end of the sutra part, as Geshe-la said. So next time we'll do the last few verses on the practice of Tantra. So I call an early exit for today. So I think we may finish next week. We'll see. Geshe-la is supposed to teach. I don't think it's been announced formally, but I believe he's starting teaching the first Sunday in April. And he may start the Wednesday teaching before that. I'm not sure. So I'm sure you'll all be the first to know. Okay, thank you. So anyway, that's like really intense. So you need to read and think, read and think, read and think, because it's so intense. And then when you've done that, then you can read Geshe Zopa's commentary on the Higher Insight chapter. This is volume 4 on shamatha. The wisdom one is about 3 times as big as this. And then you can explain it to me because I don't have a clue. Okay,
I think
thanks,
Bill
Bob.
had a question.
Uh-oh. Bill, did you have a question?
No, I was just
waving bye-bye.
I was waving bye-bye, but I want to thank you, Nick, for this course. We're not quite done. I was a little late today because we don't have daylight saving time yet here in America. So I was up making coffee when I realized I was late.
You mean Mexico? In Mexico?
Mexico, yes. What did I say?
America. Yeah.
No, you have daylight saving. We don't have it yet.
Okay.
So no, I have nothing. I have nothing to add at the moment. Thank you.
Good. Thank goodness. Okay. So yeah, once again, thank you very much. And
question, Nick?
Sure.
The text said that phenomena have no production. How does that relate to dependent origination, where everything has a causing condition? Is it a different kind of production? I'm just a little confused.
Dependent origination is the conventional way which things exist.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you look for production within dependent arising, actually you can't find it. As Geshe explained in some detail, and I couldn't possibly repeat of that.
Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Nick. I just wanted to thank you very much for your teachings. I'm just really, I just want to really thank you for these teachings that they're so deep and meaningful. I will not be able to be here next week to thank you at the end. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to extend my heart to you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You know, I'm sure you've realized I don't have much wisdom now, but so that's why I have to read from the book. You know, but you know, better than nothing. Okay, thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
Saji perki jukshin me tok tram ri rab ling ji mirik en padi sange shindu mikte orwagi drokun nam dang shing la chir par shuk je tsun lame kutse rab ten ching lam ka trin le chok chir gi padang lo sang ten pedren me sasum gi droe mun sel ta tu ne gyur chig idam guru ratna mandalakam niryatayami. From my two collections, vast as space, that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time, by even this graded course to enlightenment completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chen Rezig remain in life till samsara's end. Savior of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion. To the lotus in the hand, Lord Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be fulfilled. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majjhima's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious supreme Bodhi mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Mig se wei ter chen chen reze, dreamy kien pei, wang po jam pel yang, gang chen ke pei, su gen song ka pa, lo sang drak pei, Jabla Solwade. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, thanks again, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you, Nick.
Thank
Everyone.
you,
Bob.
Nick. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
If students could hold on just for a minute, we have an announcement just for students.
I'm a student, always learning.
Yeah.
Goodbye.